What is up, Bingo Nation, and welcome to this little project I've been working on. There's been a lot of long-time discussion about who's the greatest of all time, not really, but about where people rank in the all-time list. And so, a lot of things have changed since we last had this discussion, but I'm going to give my own take on it. I'll outline a couple conditions, couple rules I have for this list. So, first thing I'm taking into account is low activity is heftily penalized. So there's only going to be 2 names on this list that have only played in one event. Because, I think that low activity, you haven't proven you can do consistently, and that matters a lot to me personally. The second thing I'm going to keep in mind for this list is that I'm only going back as far as 2019's Connect 5 tournament. So that means none of this super old 2v2 stuff. I don't think there was a lot of 1v1 activity. I know there was some in 2017, but we don't have any data on that, and especially because I joined the community 3 years after, none of that's going to count. So that's one to keep in mind. Then the third condition is eras are not equal. So someone who was the best in 2024 versus who's the best in 2020 versus who's the best in 2026, those are not equal. I am going to value placements a lot based on the field of competition, and I think that's going to matter a lot for this list. The fourth is that eye test is going to matter in this list. This is my opinion. And so my opinions on players are going to have a big impact. That does mean that maybe exactly what the results are aren't going to be reflected in this list. Maybe you can point to some results and say, oh, but this player, has better overall results. And maybe that's true, but the eye test matters a lot for me. So maybe someone has really good results, but really bad stinkers that they kind of never got punished for because they were going to lose anyway, or that type of thing. And that being said, I don't have equal eye test value on all of the players. So for those that I don't have it for, where I don't feel super confident in their rank, I'm going to add this symbol right here. Just because, I can't have watched VODs, especially if people before my time, especially if people when I was just starting out and I really can't understand how good their play was at that time. I did go back and do some VOD watching. Especially to determine who actually makes the list and who's an honorable mention. Tons of eye test stuff happens there. The fifth thing is one banned player will be on this list. If you don't fuck with that, don't watch. I get it. Do what you gotta do, but just giving a heads up. And I think that's about it for the preconditions. So at the end of the day, if you don't agree with my opinion, let me know. Talk about it in the Bingo Discord, which will be linked in the description. Talk about it in this comment section right here. Tell me why I'm stupid. Totally cool. It's my opinion. And with that being said, let's get right into the list. I'm going to be starting off this list by explaining as well that I'm going to put all the players into 9 different tiers. And a lot of the time, the tiers are mostly going to line up with position. But sometimes that might not be the case. And the tiers are kind of there as a sort of thematic where these players fit into my hierarchy situation. And so to start off, I'm going to start with tier 9, which are what I'm going to call the mainstays. And tiers 8 and 9 will also have specific honorable mentions of players that barely didn't make the cut for top 20, but that I think there's definitely an argument for. And with that being said, let me start with the first argument for tier 9, or the first honorable mention for tier 9, which is the mainstays. I'm going to be spending a lot less time on the honorable mentions than the players on the list, but they're going to be mentioned anyway, and I have them written out right here. So the first honorable mention, and there are no particular order, but I think I do have an idea in mind of where I would place these, are a lot of the Division 2 mainstays. And for me, a lot of this is, in a way, they were kind of punished by the system. They didn't really have a great way to sort of prove themselves in the upper echelons. And these were players who, in the most competitive era of Bingo, like performed fairly well at the second tier of play, but didn't have like super impressive longevity. And that's going to be Pappuccino, GB, and Tober. GB being Gravity Beetle. And all these players in their time had some very strong results, but nothing that really pushed me over the top to make me want to include them in this list. And I think they were also hurt significantly by, just not being around for so long. All right, the next players these are one by one, because I think these are definitely the three that I was most inclined towards including. And that will close out the 6 honorable mentions in this tier. There's only going to be 3 more for the whole list after this, so, take this with a grain of salt. But my next honorable mention that I think belongs in this sort of tier, just because, been around, like, had a decent longevity and decent performance in, like, a lower echelon of competition, is Linky. So, Linky was actually placed into Division 1 in Season 1, but in my mind didn't impress me particularly. Only had 1 win over Samurai Man, which is a very strong win, but also if you play 7 games and you win 1, I don't think that's the most impressive result. And then hovered around the middle of Division 2 in Season 2, and then lost to myself actually in Division 3, and I don't think has played a bingo event since. Has had like many like relatively decent results between his Season 1, Season 2 campaign, even I think the mini tournament before that, though I haven't checked that in particular. And it's just a player who he's had relatively strong results, but never really was able to have either the longevity or the breakout performance to make it into my top 20. The next name on my list is going to be Bread Ghost. Bread Ghost started in Season 3, so a lot later than a lot of the other names that I have in this tier, and actually managed some pretty impressive results, placing quite well in both the 2024 Spring Lockout, where he placed 4th, and also quite well in Draft Blackout, where I believe he also placed 4th. Let me check that real quick to make sure that I'm not lying. I'm not lying. And so 4th, especially in like an uncapped event, is a really good performance. But for me, what kept him out of my top 20 all-time list was that his time at that level wasn't particularly long. Those were 2 good results, but they were also against comparatively weak competition. And while he did do quite well in those tournaments, in my mind, it's not enough for a top 20 spot. And then my final name that I'll have as an honorable mention for this tier, and this one was one where I was very torn about including him or not, is Libre. Libre has been around for so long, since what feels like the dawn of time. But in my mind, he's just never really had that performance that's like the breakout performance, where he's had a lot of like mixed results, like ever since the first tournament, right? He's had ups, he's had downs. I'd say maybe his most impressive performance comes in the redemption bracket in the 2024 Spring Lockout. And I really wanted to reward him for his longevity because he has been around for so long. And I think he's also an incredibly strong and scary player. But he's definitely had some brutal lows as well, like not qualifying for Dawn of a Dynasty recently. And he was really borderline, but I ended up deciding not to include him. Again, another player I feel like who was really hurt by the fact that he was kind of stuck in a lower echelon of play for a lot of his bingo career. Like in Season 2, he was 10-1, but it was against Division 3 competition, so it's really hard to sort of put him super high, or like rate that super highly. Similar situation in Season 5, where he was just kind of placed really low despite being a pretty strong player, and just, kind of not able to sort of prove himself. And that rounds up my honorable mentions in this tier. There will be 3 more in the following tier. But until then, this is where the top 20 really begins. For number 20 on my top 20 list, in my very own list, we're going to have me, Modest Tomato. So you might be wondering, isn't this guy a little biased? And so, let me talk about my bingo career and why I think that I should have top 20 over a lot of the players who also potentially deserve it. And so, one thing that I have going for me is I have a lot of really good records against a lot of the players around me in the top 20. So I think I'm something like 5-1 against Mason in tournament. Could be 4-1, but I think it's 5 now. I'm positive on Yado. I think it's 5-4 in one of the greatest rivalries ever. I have some decent placements as well. I'm also 2-0 on Linky, who was in the honorable mention. So I think I have fairly decent results. Placements wise, I think in the sort of season era, I didn't really accomplish anything too notable other than sort of the tail end of season 3 where I beat a couple Division 2 players, which was pretty decent from what I recall. 2-0 on Linky in playoffs before I forfeited out. 10-3 season. I think that is some credit, but I think most of where my points come from is really from coming back in 2024. Spring Lockout was not really my event, but I did pretty well in Sunshine Summer Showdown 1 and 2, placing 3rd and 2nd, beating Mason both times, beating Yado the second time, and also the best of 3s were all game 3 with Mason and Yado, so some, I guess, credit to be had there. And then even for Dawn of a Dynasty, even though I kind of bombed out before the playoffs, that doesn't mean I didn't still have quite good results. I beat J. Cool and Claire in qualifiers, who both ended up in qualifying for the main Swiss. Also beat Bry Guy, who all-time legend of the game. I still can't believe he went 0-3. He still played up to that level. And I beat Mason as well, who also ended up qualifying for playoffs. So, yeah, lots of different stuff going on there. I think that my recent results are just barely enough to sneak me into the top 20. But that being said, totally fair if you disagree. Of course, I'm going to be biased, so any counter argument is totally fair. And that's it for number 20. Number 19 coming right up. For number 19 spot, we have none other than Deathline. This whole tier of players from 17 to 20 is really close in my mind, and they all fall into this sort of mainstays tier, and Deathline just has that longevity. Played in the 2019 Connect 5 lockout, still played in the 2024 Spring lockout. Deathline has had so many ups and downs throughout his entire stay with Bingo, and I think that longevity really adds to his case for being up there in the top 20. Has a couple good records against some players, 1-0 against Ramato and maybe Scrim, I forget. I think it was a Scrim, so I mean, take that with a grain of salt, but also has decent records against some players like Dex, like myself, and just has, I think against Mason as well. And his sort of crowning achievement, I'd say, in his time in Bingo was his Division 2 win in Season 3. Took down Dex, took down PK, took down Mason in the finals, I know that. There's some other win in there, maybe Haywire? I don't check the math on that. But either way, super impressive win against a lot of very talented players. And just, really has that longevity component, able to perform at a consistently good level all throughout his Bingo career. And in my mind, that longevity really adds to make him number 19 on my list. For number 18, we have one of Bingo's most storied players, maybe the biggest plot armor haver in the history of the game, though not so much recently. And part of what I would say is almost every major Bingo storyline, we have number 18, Mr. Yado.
You're gonna be okay, kid.
Mr. Yado is a special player. I mean, he is truly, a lot of people like to say that they've started from the bottom and now we're here, but Yado truly did start from the bottom with 0-7 in Season 1. I don't know, it was a terrible season for him, but he really picked up the game. He learned so much. He improved so quickly. In Season 3, he won Division 3 against a set of opponents that I would say is not particularly impressive. But what was really outstanding about Yado to me, and definitely what I think separates him from everyone else in this tier, is his X factor. He just has these incredible results, even if he doesn't have like the most consistent results against a lot of players in his own tier. Like I think he's losing all time against me in Deathline, for example. His X factor, where he can just beat anyone. He can beat anyone, and he's proven it time and time again. Season 2, his first season of being good, he's the only player to hand group winner Libre a loss, and his ending record was like 50-50 almost. In Season 3, he handed Despin his like, I don't think his only loss, but is easily his worst loss, and then Despin went on to get second place in the tournament. In Season 4, he beats Peaches, who I think is another player significantly above his caliber. In Season 5, he beats Larvitar. In Spring Lockout, he beats JJ. In Summer Sunshine Showdown 1, he gets second, coming back from 9-1 in Game 3 against me. Like, it just, the magic never ends with Mr. Yato. He always keeps a cool head. He always finds these like creative ways to catch his opponent off guard. It's he's such a fascinating player to watch. Even if his recent results haven't sort of lived up to his standard, there's no doubt in my mind that Mr. Yato will definitely be making a comeback in 2026. At number 17, and as our final member of Tier 9, the Mainstays tier, we're going to have probably the biggest mainstay of them all, and that's Mason. Mason's been there since the beginning. He's played in like essentially every bingo tournament minus maybe a monthly or two. And he's just been like a consistent performer. He's always been at that level. Like I think quite literally the only event he did not participate in was the Invitational in Connect 5 in 2019. And since then, like he's been at the top of that like second tier of gameplay the whole time. Season 1, 5-2 regular season record. Season 2, I think 8-3 regular season record, all in Div 2. Season 3, second in Div 2. And finally makes sort of Div 1 in seasons 4 and 5. But the thing that's always been so like holding Mason back for me is that for so long, it's his sort of bingo career was always like characterized by like tragically failing to take the final step. He has a great regular season, and then in playoffs he'll lose a close best of 3, or he just won't put up the same stuff he did before. Like I know his loss to Deathline in Division 2 finals that season was crushing. I know that he's also been crushed after losing in Sunshine's Summer Showdown losers bracket to me both times, where in one of them we both die in Serena 4 and I end up getting lucky and winning the game off that, and in the other one Mason, or I forget what happens. I think Mason makes like a bad call in the mid game, and it's just like he's always so close, 13-12s, just inches away from getting another placement higher, making that sort of like big breakthrough for so long. And it was always really sad because it's clear like no one wants him more than Mason. You see the grit in his play, and that he's like his consistent appearance, his practice, he's always scrimming. He has a family, he's still scrimming. He has a kid, he's still scrimming. So I think it was cathartic for everyone, but most of all the man himself, when now finally here in Dawn of a Dynasty, he made playoffs against the strongest field we've had in a bingo tournament, arguably ever, but definitely since 2021. And I'm just, it's incredible to see a storyline like tinged in tragedy finally, be put to rest as Mason beats Paperario to make top 8. And you can see how much the moment meant to him. It's really incredible. And, Mason's still around. We're going to be sure to see even higher heights in 2026. That is it for Tier 9. And Tier 8 is going to be the last tier that features honorable mentions. And once again, keep in mind that the tiering system isn't really necessarily meant as a gap, but I think it's sort of separating players by archetype and, people that fit well together for me. And this tier, Tier 8, is going to be the one-hit wonder tier. So there are 3 honorable mentions in this tier, all who had one performance that was incredible, but was not able to follow it up in any other tournament, and in my mind performed somewhat subpar or simply didn't play anymore at all. So the first player in this list is Urbani. Urbani had an incredible 17-0 record in Division 3, which makes him the most winning player of all time by win rate. I think he had a 90% win rate after playing 3 games in Season 3 and then forfeiting from the event. And that is an incredible level of consistency, but he never really proved himself against a higher echelon of competition. And I think that he's also penalized for sort of dropping out. And even in those games that he played in Season 3, he didn't look particularly impressive to me. But either way, I thought he at least deserved a shout for his incredible 17-0 run. But that's about where that ends. Not, in my mind, particularly close to making the top 20. The second honorable mention goes to SB Electric. And these next 2 are both names I really considered including in my top 20. But like I said, in my criteria, I really mean to punish players for having low activity. And SB, in the very first tournament in this listing, actually placed second and defeated Ramato, which is an incredible win. I can take a look at the bracket real quick, actually, because I need a little refresher. It's been a little bit since I crunched these numbers. Info, here we go. I got it. Trust me. Is C5 not listed? Wait, for real? Or no, it's row control is what it actually is. That's why I'm confused. Yeah, so SB had a very interesting path of beating Deathline and then Urinal Mike and then Ramato and then Bry Guy, which is an incredible lineup of wins. And I took a look at a lot of these games because my immediate instinct was like, wow, this is so much better than what so many bingo players have ever accomplished. But this is another place where SB gets penalized a lot for this sort of I don't equate eras. And looking at the level of competition in this tournament, it is a lot lower than I would have liked. And for me to like truly reward it super strongly. I think it also hurts him a little that row control is a bit of an inconsistent format, which makes it a little harder for me to say that he's really at that sort of impressive level. But this is really like the dawn before time, before a lot of players really reached their peak. And then he also did end up losing twice to Ramato in grands, so kind of makes me think it was a bit of a fluke. The Bry Guy win is still really impressive, as is the Urinal Mike win. So this was another like really borderline case of like single event versus longevity, and this was a case where I picked longevity, but SB definitely has a very real case for being top 20 all time, and was just a name I opted to exclude. But definitely there's a very fair argument. I think if he had performed slightly better in any of his tournaments after this, where I believe he placed 7th and 9th with some pretty bad losses from what I recall, or at least below this performance, of course, then maybe I could have had him on the list, but unfortunately barely didn't make the cut for me. And then my final honorable mention, and this is another incredibly borderline case for me, is Cathalon. So Cathalon played in I believe it was the Connect 5 Invitational, and had a very strong performance. Defeated Pogo, this was long before Pogo's prime, defeated Larvitar, defeated Danieru, and then barely loses to Ramato, and then gets stomped by Paperario. And Cathalon is another player where I think my criteria really hurt him. So the low attendance sort of criteria is definitely going to hurt him a lot, because this is his only tournament. I did actually ask Romano for some monthly results around that time, and he had mixed results. So like I would definitely say that his skill potentially warrants a top 20 spot, but this is another case where this is long before the sort of prime of bingo, and it's really hard to sort of reward him too much in, again, Connect 5 is a somewhat inconsistent format, and it seems like ever since like the start of 1v1 that his results weren't really able to hold up. It's another one where this was like inches from my top 20 list. There was totally an argument for it, but it's another case of I really value longevity, and I really value being able to do it again. And Calf to me proved neither of those. But either way, like both of these last two mentions, like you come back, you do have decent in a tournament, and you're probably clearly in my top 20. If they care. I mean, I don't know. Calf's been retired for like 10 years, so I don't know. That's not true. It's like 7. But either way, that's my honorable mentions out of the way. But now for my placements for Tier 8, the one-hit wonder tier. At number 16 on my list, in the first installation of the one-hit wonder tier, we have Shadow Mario 27. SM27 played in one bingo event, and conveniently for him, it was probably the most stacked one ever, being Season 2 of the Sunshine Bingo League. And he ended the regular season with a record of 9-2 against all of the greatest players that the game has ever seen. And if you're familiar with Shadow Mario 27, this should not come as a surprise to you. Multiple 120 shine world record holder, one of the biggest contributors to routing ever. At the top of the, even today, he is at the top of the bingo IL sheet, though admittedly he did update a lot of his times in the past few months. And he's just a legend of the game, and he has such impressive results that are only slightly dampened by his playoffs losses to Larvitar and JJ, who are once again two of the greatest players to ever touch the game. And SM's legacy really speaks for itself, but this is a case where he's really being punished by my criteria of sort of, if you're a one-hit wonder, you're getting ranked a lot lower. That being said, like, he comes back, he plays some more Bing. I mean, I think he'd instantly shoot up the ranks, and I don't think it'd be a question. Definitely one of Bingo's biggest what-ifs, and what if he played more? It's hard to say, but even so, his incredible Season 2 performance is still enough for me to put him at number 16 on my list. And with that, the first part of my little ranking series has concluded. This is my first video on this channel. And I didn't want to get bogged down. My old channel, I can link it. I have some bingo related videos over there as well. But, I just thought it was kind of more natural, have something that's kind of more fitting with my brand and my name that I use, and not some old, like, Clash of Clans, I made this YouTube channel 13 years ago, nonsense garbage when I was like 13. No, that would make it 11 years ago, but like still super old YouTube channel. So it's like, I don't know. I want to move my serious stuff over to a new place, and that's going to be here. And I also want to make some more content. That being said, so expect part 2 of this ranking series to probably go up in a couple days. Right now, I'm just at the very start of making it, so it's hard for me to know how long is going to be in between the different parts, but I would be surprised if it takes me more than a week between the different parts. So either way, that's going to be it for me, and make sure I've got a ton of content ideas planned for this channel. I'll have to flesh some more of them out, but I'm really excited, and I'm content maxing this year. I'm going to try and do a lot of bingo related content in 2026. And I'm really excited to see where that goes. All right. Thank you so much. This has been part 1 of my top 20 list, featuring myself, Deathline, Mr. Yato, Mason, and Shadow Mario 27. Thank you, and make sure you stay tuned for start parts 2 through 4. Take care.